Welcome to this React Diagram tutorial. In this video, I will show you how to add and customize annotations in nodes and connectors in the Syncfusion React Diagram component. I will explain how to add and update annotations at runtime. I will also explain how to customize annotations and add a hyperlink in an annotation. First, I open my existing React application, where I have added a diagram component with a simple flowchart to check whether a number is even or odd. To learn more about integrating the diagram component into a React application, please follow the video linked in the card above and in the description below. Let me run this application using the npm start command. The diagram canvas is rendered with a flowchart. Notice that these nodes are empty, as I have not added any annotations yet. I can double-click a node to add the annotation, or I can select the node and press the F2 button on the keyboard. I can add annotations for the connectors in the same ways. Next, I will show you how to add annotations to nodes and connectors programmatically. I start with the first node in the nodes array. Let me add the annotations property and assign an empty array of objects. Inside the array, I create an object, and within I add the content property and set the value to start. You can add more than one annotation by adding more objects inside this array. Following the same procedure, I add annotations to all the nodes. In the diagram canvas, you can now see that all the nodes have their own annotations. Now I need to add annotations to the third and fourth connectors. Inside the connectors array, I add the annotations property to the third connector and set the content property to false. Similarly, I add the content true to connector 4. Now you can see the connectors with their respective annotations. The connector annotations intersect with the connectors itself. To resolve this, I add the style property and set the fill property to white to add a background color. Now you can see the annotations are portrayed clearly on the connectors. Next, I'll show you how to add annotations to connectors and nodes dynamically. I remove the existing annotations from the fourth node and fourth connector. To add annotations dynamically, I need to access the diagram component during runtime. So, I import the useRef hook from the React package. I declare a variable called diagramRef and create a reference to a diagram component instance using the useRef hook, initializing it with a null value. Then I assign this diagramRef variable to the ref property. With this diagramRef variable, I can access all diagram-related functions. Next, I import the useEffect hook from React and declare a useEffect block. This useEffect block runs whenever a React component is refreshed, so it can be used to update the annotations dynamically. Inside the useEffect block, I add a null check for the diagram instance. Then I add an annotation to node 3 using the addLabels method by passing the appropriate node index and the annotation content. Similarly, I add an annotation to the fourth connector by calling the addLabels method with appropriate parameters. Now you can see the annotations are added onto the diagram like before. Next, I will show you how to add annotations at runtime by using a button click. I start by commenting out the useEffect block. Then I create a button with the button text add annotations. I also add an onClick event with the event handler add annotations. I define the add annotations event handler method and create an array variable named new nodes. I assign the original nodes array to the new nodes variable using the map function. Inside the map function, I filter out the node to which I want to set annotations and then add the annotations accordingly. Similarly, I add annotations to the connectors as well. Finally, using the setNodes and setConnectors functions, I update the nodes and connectors state variables. I navigate to the app CSS file and using the button selector, set a margin of 20 pixels. In the diagram canvas, when I click the button Add Annotations, the annotations are added. Next, I'll show you how to customize the annotations. First, I will show you how to align the node annotations using the offset property. Look at this image. It represents different offset values in which the node annotations can be positioned. 0, 0 represents the top left corner, 1, 1 represents the bottom right corner, and 0.5 signifies the midpoint along any line in the node. You can set any fractional value between 0 and 1 for the x and y properties. To show the annotation in the top left corner, I need to set the offset values of x and y to 0. For now, I add the annotations back into the nodes and connectors that I removed earlier and set the offset x and y properties as 0 for the third node. In the diagram canvas, you can see the third node annotation is rendered in the top left corner of the node. The connector annotations can also be positioned based on the offset value. For example, I customize the position of the connector annotation by setting the offset value to 0 for the fourth connector. You can also set the value to 1, or any fractional value between 0 and 1. Since connectors are one-dimensional geometric objects, they only need one axis value to align. The annotations of the fourth connector is rendered in the 0 position. You can also use the alignment property to align the connector annotations. It allows you to align the annotations by center, before, and after, while center being the default value. Let me use them in the connectors. In the fourth connector, I add the alignment property and set the value after. And in the third connector, I set the alignment property to before. Now you can see the annotations in the before and after alignments for the connectors. Notice that the annotations are very close to the connectors. To further adjust the positions of the connector annotations from their current locations, I can use the displacement property. In the connector annotations, I define the displacement property with x and y axis values of 5 pixels. Now you can see that both annotations are displaced 5 pixels from the connectors. I can align the node annotations the same way. For nodes, I can set the horizontal and vertical alignment. They support the combination values of left, right, top, bottom, and center. Now I will demonstrate how to align an annotation to the top left of the node when the offset value is set at 0, 0. In the third node's annotations, I define the horizontal alignment with the value left and vertical alignment with the value top. Now the node annotation is positioned at the top left. Next, I'll show you how to wrap the annotations. In the second node object within the Annotations property, I define the style property and set the text wrapping property with the value wrap. I can also set the values no wrap and wrap with overflow if required. Wrap with overflow is the default value for the text wrapping property. In the diagram canvas, to see the text wrapping effect, I adjust the width of the second node, and you can see the text getting wrapped. Similarly, I can apply custom styles to annotations using the style property. Say, for example, I customize the font styles by setting the font family and font size properties with desired values. You can see the modified font style for the annotation in the node. Next, I'll show you how to interact with the diagram annotations. First, I need to use the constraints property. The constraints property allows us to select, drag, rotate, and resize the annotations and make them read-only. To enable annotations interaction, first I import the annotations constraints module from the EJ2 React Diagrams package. Then inside the node's annotations property, I define the constraints property and set the value to interaction. You can select the annotation in a node, drag it, resize it, and rotate it. To prevent this, in the node's annotations property, I set the constraints property to read only. Now I cannot select or edit annotations in the node. Finally, I'll explain how to add a hyperlink to an annotation. In the first node annotations property, I add the hyperlink property. Inside, I create an object with a link property and set a valid URL. I add the content property and set a value which will be displayed in the node. And then I add the hyperlink open state property and set the value current tab. I can also set the values new tab or new window. You can now see the hyperlink rendered in the node annotation. When I click on it, we are redirected to the URL as expected. That's all for this video. To summarize, you saw how to add, customize, and position annotations in the Syncfusion React Diagram component. Additionally, you have learned how to customize the appearance of the annotations by setting text wrapping and font styles and adding hyperlinks to a node annotation. You can download the example used in this video from the GitHub link in the description below. I've also included a link to check whether you're eligible for our community license, which gives you a free license key for our React components. If you found this video useful, click the like button and subscribe to our channel to watch new videos. Thanks for watching.